Paranormal Heart Podcast.
Welcome to Paranormal Heart, a place where people can talk about their paranormal experiences. With your host, Kat Ward.
Happy New Year! Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast 2023. It's your girl, Kat. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas, happy holidays, whatever you celebrated. I hope it was a joyous one. Can you believe we're now in 2023? Where has the time gone, people? I almost feel like we're in a time slip. What do you think? For my first episode of the year, I've done a collaboration with my good friend Ghost Joe, host of the Warped Reality Podcast. Since we had a difficult time getting our schedules to coincide because, well, he works 100 hours a week, we thought it best to record this once and share it for both shows. Ghost Joe and I touched on a lot of things, so this is a long one, people. We had such a great time chatting, we hadn't noticed how much time had passed. It's a couple of hours. So sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, and enjoy the show. And don't forget to check out the Warped Reality Podcast with the amazing Ghost Joe. If you'd like to share your encounters on the show, or have questions, comments, or just want to say hello, drop me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoy the show, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Tell your friends. Don't keep it to yourself. Tell the world about Paranormal Heart Podcast. And you can tell them that new episodes are released on the second and last Sunday of each month at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find me on YouTube, Podbean, KPNL Digital Network on Thursday nights, and any place you find fine podcasts. Now, on with the show.
Ghost Joe. I'm here with Kat, and we're doing a podcast collaboration right now for the Warped Reality Podcast and Paranormal Hearts Podcast. So there you go.
And I'm Kat Ward from Paranormal Heart. So it's nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, face to face. That's great. Yeah, we've been planning this for months now, so it's
at least 2 months.
Yeah,
we just can't seem to get our schedules to coincide.
No,
well, especially you. You have such a your schedule is brutal compared to mine.
It's ridiculous too, because when I'm leaving work, it takes me sometimes 3 hours to get home. So
Wow.
I'll leave home. Yeah, so I'll leave work at 4 p.m. and I'm not getting home till 7 p.m. Then I have to eat real quick. Then I go to sleep just to come back to work a few hours later. So it's
brutal.
Nuts. So I actually do the majority of a lot of my interviews when I'm on vacation.
That's
the most time.
Holy
there's
cow.
even some interviews that and I feel really bad because he was a really, really good guy. I did this interview with this guy. We talked for like 2 hours. Really, really nice guy, very, very knowledgeable, and I never aired his interview because I've never had the time to really edit the interview.
Well, maybe you can do it now.
Yeah, now I could. I have another interview that I'm putting out on the Christmas episode with a guy named John Wright, that he works in a paranormal museum over actually
Really?
about a half hour from where I live, and I met him there, and really, really good guy, really knowledgeable. He's actually a history teacher too.
That's amazing.
So he's a history teacher. He's a paranormal investigator. He's like a Bigfoot enthusiast. like UFO. Actually, and the craziest part is that he volunteers, or he's a MUFON investigator.
That's amazing.
So
I may need to meet him.
yeah, he's a great, and you know what? I was his first podcast interview. He's never done it before, so I would definitely pass him. Pass.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Paranormal Museum. That's the thing about the States and Canada. We don't have cool shit like that in Canada. We don't. We have lots of haunted locations, museums and stuff like that, but we don't have paracons and things like that, which it's really sad because I really want to go to some.
Well, I'll tell you, when I moved upstate, because I live in upstate New York, when I moved upstate, I was really excited because I did some research on, the area and stuff. And I found out that the Warrens Museum was literally 20 minutes from me, because it's in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And I'm in upstate New York, and it was right there. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to go. And it's closed forever. Like, damn.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Why
They
is
closed
it. Closed?
They never really said this is my theory. I think they closed it because, both of the Warrens passed away.
Yeah.
Right. So they're not around anymore. I believe they closed it mainly because all these Conjuring movies are coming out. So their house is on a residential street, which is where the museum is. So I'm sure, just like the Amityville house, they get tons of people driving past there, taking pictures, hanging out, and the neighbors just got pissed off at it, too mad about it, made complaints, and they had to shut it down. And because the Warrens aren't alive, they couldn't fight to keep it open,
Oh, you'd think the Warren Foundation would be able to do something.
Or their I believe it's their nephew that runs everything now.
Chris?
You would think the nephew.
Oh no, that's grandson.
No,
Johnny's office?
no, Johnny's office. No, I forget his name. Oh, Tony Spira.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and but I guess he didn't have the pull or something to keep it open. But that's why I was excited last year. I went to my first Paracon, and he had a lot of the Warren stuff there from the museum, and I knew I had to go to that because I was like, listen, my fear was that, and I don't like the guy, right? Not John, not Spira. I don't like Zach Bagans. I think he's a pompous jerk, right? So my fear was that since the Warren Museum closed, I was like, oh, this dude is probably going to buy up all the stuff and bring it to Las Vegas, and then I'm never going to see this stuff ever again.
Yeah.
Because he has his own museum in Vegas.
Yep.
I'm like, this dude, I know he's eyeing this stuff. He's got to be the Annabelle doll.
Yep.
He's probably made them 1 million offers already. I said, so I got to go and see this stuff before it leaves here.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really cool. I took a picture with Annabelle, the real one and the movie one, which is cool. And a few of the other haunted items that they had there, which was pretty awesome.
How close were you able to get to the artifacts? Because I know, are they all encased in glass?
Yeah. I mean, well, some of them. I mean, of course, obviously the Annabelle one was, and a few others were encased in glass. Some of the other ones were just kind of out of reach. A little bit out of reach behind, a rope. Mm. But no, very close actually. Pretty close. And the convention itself was great. I met a lot of people there. And I think I ended up doing a lot of interviews behind that too, because I went there, I went to every single table, networked and stuff. And everybody was really, really nice. So I was happy with the way that worked out.
Was it this year? Was it this year's Paracon you said, or was it last year?
It was last year's. Okay. And I'll tell you, I could have went to this year's, but I was a little upset because last year's was their first Paracon. Right? It was their first Paracon that they did last year. So I believe the Warrens Museum part, because the Warrens Museum was different than the convention. It was right next door, but it was a separate price. So the convention itself, I think, was $50. And then the museum was like $20 or $25 last year. Now, I guess because he saw how many people went to the museum, now it's like $70 to get into the museum. It was something like that. It was like he jacked up the price like crazy, and I'm like, you know what? I don't like that. I'm not doing that.
I can't
I just don't have the
blame
money
him, but yeah.
No, I can't blame him either. But I couldn't afford it this year.
Yeah.
and obviously everybody was there for Annabelle. Everybody goes to Annabelle.
So do you sense things from items? Because I'm just wondering, having all those artifacts in one spot, were you able to pick up any energies off of anything?
I couldn't. I mean, I don't really pick up things from, like, for me, that I don't really have that kind of, I guess you would say, ability. But I never really, I feel like it was too crowded. I don't think you would be able to pick up anything because it was just so crowded in there and stuff like that. My thing that I'm always able to do is say, hey, if there's something here, give me a sign. And I always get a sign. Always.
Nice.
Always. That's why I don't do it anymore, because I have my own house with my kids and stuff. And I don't need, knocks on my door over here and things falling behind me, because that happens. And actually, that's one of my questions actually too. When you've been recording, has anything weird or paranormal happened to you at all while you've recorded, like an interview or anything?
Not to me, but I have had one guest in particular say, "Oh my God, I picked up an EMF, and I went in and I actually heard a voice, and I thought, oh wow!" And I've had some people message me and say when they're listening to the show that, yes, I thought I heard something. So there are the odd things that I'll pick up on the audio after the fact, but nothing during recording. Now I'm looking around now, watch, things gonna happen. That wasn't really an invitation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why, like, that's why I don't stick with things for a long time. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, when I talk about the black-eyed children, mm-hmm. when you give them enough recognition and attention, that's when they apparently appear. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to talk about them a lot because I don't want them knocking on my door, Yeah. But, I actually had gotten, I think it was before I had interviewed Carl Johnson and Keith Johnson, the two twins that were on Ghost Hunters and, famed demonologist guys, brothers. And Carl, when I did his interview, I had asked him a question. I said, do you feel that the Ouija board can bring in evil entities, just from using the Ouija board? And right before he answered, now I know Zoom has a lot of glitches. I get it. I know Zoom has a lot of glitches, but it just so happens that right after I asked that question, you hear another voice say something in between when he answered.
Did you hear it in real time or after?
I heard it after.
That's amazing.
And then I blew it up and I'm like, oh my God, and then I'm looking and I look at the sound wave because you could see the sound wave where it happened. And I'm like, oh, good. That was on his side. Good. That was on his end.
What did it say?
So, I'm terrible at that stuff. I am horrible trying to decipher what EVPs say. That I couldn't really tell, and I don't like to guess on it either.
Gotcha.
Just because I forget what they call it, like auditory pareidolia, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But I just, because you're going to hear what you want to hear, basically. Yeah. But I know I had showed somebody at work, and when I showed it to them, I said, does this sound like something? Like, what does this sound like it's saying to you? And he's like, when I asked, is there whatever, blah, 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 about the Ouija board, he said, oh my God, it said there is, like it was answering my question.
Yeah.
So that's what he said. And somebody else said it sounded like something else. So who knows? Yeah. But it definitely sounded like somebody answered my question other than Carl, at that time, which was pretty crazy.
That's why whenever I show people either a photo that we took during our investigations or if there's an EVP that I picked up, I'm not going to tell them what I think it is. I'll just say, hey, do you see anything in there? Do you hear anything in there? Right. And if they pick up on what I thought I picked up, which is the same thing, then I know it's like, okay, Saturday Night Live had a skit years ago with David Akora. from Most Haunted from back in the day when it first started. It wasn't really David or Corey. It was one of the actors from the show. So there's David and two people walking into a haunted location, and then the David character was rather gassy, so he farted. So the two people, like the audio guy and then the other person, are like, oh, did you hear that? And he's like, no, it's okay, it was nothing. They're like, let's play it again, and then they play it, and they're like, it sounds like Raja. So it's like, no, it wasn't. So it's just funny how sometimes you'll pick up something on audio that's really nothing, but everybody, myself included, I want to hear something, but
Right.
I kind of get disappointed if I actually don't hear something, or if I say, if I thought I heard, here's Roger, for example, and I play it for someone else and they don't hear the same thing, I'm kind of disappointed, because we do so badly want to get, something really good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. And then the other biggest thing that happened to me right before, I think it might have been his brother even, when I was about to interview Keith. There's always these demonologists. I guess they bring in this crazy energy, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I was getting ready, setting up my microphone, making sure the camera was good and all this stuff. And, he wasn't on he wasn't on Zoom yet. So I'm just getting everything together, my water and everything, my notes. And now, to the left side of me over here is my basement sliding glass door, right? Mm-hmm. Leads out to my backyard. I do all my interviews at like 10 o'clock at night. I live in a quiet neighborhood. There's nobody in my backyard. Mm-hmm. Then why did I hear knocking on my door?
Of course.
Yeah. And I said, I'm not answering that. There's no way I'm answering that. So I get it. You're here. You know what I'm doing. I'm just entertaining. That's it.
Yeah.
Not answering. But yeah, like, and I guess doing these interviews sometimes is almost like asking for a sign, because you're inviting things in when you're doing this stuff. Yeah. But luckily, and I'm knocking on wood here, I've never really had any kind of demonic, thing like that, and I don't care to ever, I talk about it a lot on my show, but I'll never, I actually was gonna do an audiobook for an encyclopedia of demons.
Oh, once. Really?
Because it's on ACX. If you look on ACX, there's an encyclopedia of demons, and she chose me to do it, and I said, you know what, I think I'm gonna pass, because
I wouldn't be able to do it.
Number one, I couldn't even get halfway through the preface because of all those Latin words and stuff. I couldn't pronounce any of them. So and I'm like sitting there trying to look up, all right, what's this word mean? All right, what's that word mean? How do you say this? How do you say that? And I was already only on like my second sentence. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this for 50,000 words. Forget that, Yeah. And it was an encyclopedia of demons for 3,500 demons. And I said, I can't even handle one demon in my house. I'm definitely not going to be able to handle 3,500 of them in my house.
No kidding.
So I'm passing off, I'm passing that up. And it was funny because I sent her an email saying like, listen, yeah, I'm going to have to pass. I know this is like the first one and you're the first person to give me a chance, but I said, but yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this. And all she said was, okay, no problem. And then when I looked at the history,
mm-hmm.
the book has been out for like 13 years and she's never had anybody do the audiobook. I said, so that's got to mean something,
And 13 years? 13.
Yeah, right? So I'm like, you know what? I made the right decision.
Do you know she actually found anybody eventually?
Probably not, because it's still on my ACX as me accepting the project. Mm-hmm. Even though we canceled it and I declined it, but for some reason it's still up there as if I accepted it. So probably not, because that probably would have disappeared from me.
Yeah, you would think.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was a wise decision you made, because as an investigator, I will not do anything demonic. That's way above my pay grade. I no.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's why like Chris. That's why I give Chris Whitehouse so much credit, because like he his like whole thing is the Ouija board.
Mhm.
Like that's his main form of communication and investigation is with that Ouija board. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Like I had one experience with the Ouija board when I was like 19 years old, and I'll never do it ever again after that.
Yeah.
You know?
So for your listeners, anyone who knows about my show knows that I usually have tech issues, and it did not disappoint. So yeah, lost internet, screen went black, and I'm like, oh no. But I am blaming Chris. Sorry, not Chris. We were talking about Chris, Ghost Joe, because he was talking about demons.
Definitely my fault. Always my fault. Always. Oh, so why podcasting and why the paranormal?
Paranormal has always fascinated me since I was young. I grew up on the east coast of Canada in a province called New Brunswick, and the 3-story apartment building that we lived on the top, and it was a very old building. This is where I had my first paranormal experience that I actually remember. The building was so old that it would... the basement used to have a coal furnace to heat the building, but by the time we moved in, it was electric heat. But I saw the Hat Man in my room for many, many years, but he was short. He was about 4 feet tall. Now, I had someone a couple of years ago ask me, how do you know he was 4 feet? And I said, well, I can compare him to the height of my dresser that I had in my room. And even today, my dad says, you used to have lots of night terrors in that apartment building. I would wake up, screaming, the man in the closet, in the closet. I had a big walk-in closet in my room. And so that terrified me, but it also intrigued me. And growing up, just being sensitive a little bit, and growing up, just loved the paranormal. When I first found out about Ed and Lorraine Warren, I was fascinated. It's like, oh my God, these are my heroes. They're doing amazing. Like, this is what I want to do. Now that I'm older, I don't want to do that. Not to that level anyways. Fast forward a few years, a friend of mine, my very first interview that I did on a paranormal talk show was Odd to Newfoundland with John Mallard. And very first interview, I was terrified. And I did a couple other interviews on other shows after that. And I had family and friends say, hey, you did a good job. You should start your own podcast. And my reply was always, hell no. So when I mentioned that to my husband, he says, well, why don't you start a podcast? I'm like, well, that's something that other people do. That's not something that I do. And he's like, well, why not? You love the paranormal. You love talking with people. Why not? And I started thinking, it's like, why not? Because being an investigator, I realized that a lot of people, they're traumatized when they have a paranormal encounter, especially if their significant other doesn't believe them. I mean, we've seen families break up because of it. One person thinks they've gone crazy, and the other spouse probably agrees with them because their spouse is witnessing something that they're not witnessing. So I wanted to provide a safe space for somebody who wanted to talk about their paranormal encounters. If they don't want to talk about their paranormal encounters, at least they can listen to know that they're not the only person in the world having these things happening. It's happening around the world. So that's the main reason why I wanted to start a podcast, is just to let people know that you're not alone. And the Hat Man encounter that I had as a kid, I only found out years later that other people were seeing the Hat Man, but the taller one, not so much for the shorter version. But so podcasting like yours and mine and so many other great ones out there just kind of brings people together, I find, to know that, yeah, there's other people having these encounters too. I'm not totally crazy, if they are, so am I, and so is everybody else. But no, that's the main reason why I wanted to start a podcast.
Wow. All right. Yeah, I actually, like you, I've always been interested in paranormal. I had some experiences when I was younger, all the way up until, recent times. But like you, I've always, been interested in it. And I've always been the type, like, even with music or anything like that, I've always wanted to share my enthusiasm with people on things that I'm interested in, like, oh, you got to hear the song, or, oh, you got to see this movie, So I've always been about that. And I'm like, you know what? And I actually got started listening to the Monsters Among Us podcast. And I don't know if you've heard Monsters Among
No,
Us.
I don't think I have.
It's a great
I have
podcast.
to check that out.
Yeah, actually, Derek Hayes is the host, and he's actually on all of these Travel Channel, shows now. Hosting.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and his podcast is great because it's all. He's not even the star of the podcast. He has people calling in and telling their paranormal experiences, and that's always what I always wanted to do with it. Was to have people call in and tell me their experiences. Kind of like you. Like I wanted to provide a safe space for people to talk about their experiences, and unfortunately, I don't get too many people calling in. Not the first season. A few people called in. Nowadays, I don't know what's going on. I guess people are out now. People were inside when I first started in the pandemic, but
Yep.
Guess everybody's out. Nobody wants to call anybody anymore.
Maybe.
But we're about to run out of time, and I'm going to have to send you another link. All right?
Sure, not a problem.
Give me 2 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
There.
Yeah. Well, now I've actually paid for a subscription. 'Cause
Okay.
this is just a little ridiculous now. So I might as well. I'm going to get rid of StreamYard and continue with Zoom.
Okay. Are you going to be giving a stern talking to those two gentlemen?
Nah. You know what? They're cool guys. They both play guitar.
They are,
I'm
yeah.
a guitar player too. So we had a lot in common there. So we actually had like a good 20-minute conversation about guitars, even after all the
Oh,
paranormal.
that's funny.
So that was pretty cool. Yeah. So how'd you get in touch with them? How do you know those guys? Brian Bowden.
Gee, and Al Santoriga. Geez, I think it was through the Mallard Report with Jim Mallard. He's on Tuesday nights at 9 Eastern. He has live shows, and I heard these two guys on there, and I thought, wow, these guys actually sound legit. Like, they were amazing. They were funny. They just played well off of each other, and I think we became friends.
You there?
Yeah, I'm there. Oh no, don't. Did you lose
No, it
me
wasn't
again?
me.
Oh, okay.
No, that wasn't me. That's my recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
so
Go ahead.
yeah, so we became friends, and then I had them on my show a couple of times together, individually. They have mentored me as well during my podcast. Anytime, especially in the beginning, because it's been 5 years now for my show, and in the beginning, they were kind of leery, especially Al, to give me tips, and like, well, I don't want you to hate me, Kat. I'm like, I never could. I'm not the type of person who offends easily. So if you have constructive criticism about my show, please tell me, because I need to improve. So now, Brian used to help me an awful lot with my promo banners in the beginning. I would send him the photos, and he'd do everything in, I swear, 2 minutes off of his phone. I'm like, how the hell are you doing this? But no, they still, they're such great guys. I really hope to meet them in person someday. But yeah, long story short, it was through the Mallard Report.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, and I was very close to meeting Al a few weeks ago because he had done a Bigfoot seminar.
Yeah.
Like literally about 5 minutes from my house.
Nice.
And I guess he must do things there, or there's a few things that go on there quite often. The Putnam Valley Library or something like that it's called. And I live in Putnam County.
Okay.
So it was very, very close to me, and just unfortunate I couldn't make it because I was working that morning and I had to go home. One of those days I told you about it. I had to run home, eat, go to sleep, and then get back to work. So unfortunately I couldn't make it, but I definitely. They invited me along to, they're like, yeah, anytime you want to go to like an investigation or tag along, let us know. I'm like, oh, definitely. I definitely go with those guys, You're
going to have lots of fun, lots of laughs. Oh my God. I love Brian's dogman encounter where he tried to show his dominance, so to speak. It's like, what are you doing peeing in front of a dogman? Like...
Yeah,
he's got brass ones, that man.
Yeah, no, but both of those guys are great. They are. I mean, I had so much fun, talking to those guys.
How did you meet them?
It was, and it's funny too because I think it was I want to say it was on one of the Facebook groups or something like that I was on, and I saw somebody comment or something like that, and I'm like, who are these guys? I was looking for paranormal groups that were in the New York area.
Okay, yep.
And they have all these New York, Dogman chapter, UFO, Bigfoot, all that stuff. And then I went to one of the websites and I saw that they did everything, all of those, So then I reached out to them like that, and it was funny because, and then I saw that they've been on your show a whole bunch of times. I'm like, oh, she's gonna think I'm like stealing guests or something.
God, no.
It just happened that I came across them when I was looking for New York things because they're close to me. Well, maybe not Brian anymore, but Al is pretty close. So, so that's how I actually how I met them. But yeah, great guys. I mean, sometimes I'll even text them still. I'll message Al or whatever. Funny. Both of them funny guys. Like, I don't know if you heard the interview. Did you hear my interview with them?
Yep.
Okay. I had to throw in that stupid, and I said to my dad before, because I talked to my dad a lot about this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, Dad, I'm like, I'm doing this interview. I know how to write questions really well. I said, but I don't really know these guys. So I don't know how the Bigfoot, is Bigfoot as blurry in person as he is in all the pictures.
I had loved that.
Is if they're gonna take that good, he's like, oh, I don't know. I said, you know what? I said, they're New Yorkers. They'll get over it. They'll be all right.
Yeah.
They ended up liking the joke, so I'm like, all right, good. But
I howled when I heard that. I was listening, had my earbud in, and I think I was actually at work. Yeah, I was at work folding laundry. I work at the front desk of a hotel, but the shifts that I work, we help the housekeeper, so we fold laundry. And I had one earbud in so I could still hear what's going on, and I'm laughing. I thought that's the best question ever.
I try and stick some humor into it because you know what it is for me. I take the subject matter seriously. Mm-hmm. I really do, but I don't take myself very seriously. So I try and add different jokes. Like my way of hosting things, and it was funny because going into it, I said everybody has somebody that they kind of want to emulate with this sort of thing. Whether it's a news broadcaster or something like that. I want to emulate Conan O'Brien. I want to be like Conan O'Brien is one of the funniest guys I've ever seen in my life. Yep. I said. And Conan has like this self-deprecation type thing where, I've even stolen some of the things and put it on the podcast where I'm like, one of the things that he does on his show, and I've stolen it from my podcast, is he'll say, yeah, I have a great show for you tonight. All my other shows were crap. Like stuff like that. So I've used that with my podcast before because I'm like, that's hysterical, but yeah, that's why I've always loved his style, and the man worked at Saturday Night Live. He was a writer on Saturday Night Live when it was one of the most funniest casts ever.
I've forgotten about that.
Yeah, he was the writer in the 90s with like Chris Farley and David Spade and Mike Myers and
when they were good.
When they were really good. And he was one of the writers, and he was also a Simpsons writer.
Yep.
So, I was very, very upset when all that Tonight Show drama happened to him. I was really upset because he deserves that way more than Fallon. But
yeah.
But going back to the paranormal thing, and go off in tangents and stuff. Let me see here. Let's see what I got here. Because do you have any questions? Do you have any questions?
No, just I think we already touched base on it about how you started your podcasting, but you said that you grew up with paranormal experiences. Can you touch a little bit on that?
So, as I said before, I've always been the type where I wouldn't call it a gift. I wouldn't call it an ability. Probably anybody could really do it if they really cared to pay attention. But I've always been the type where if I ask for a sign, I'll usually get a sign somehow. And but the first encounter I had was when I was 6 years old. I was in my my grandparents' apartment building in Queens with my sister and my cousin. We were all sleeping in the same bed. It was the 80s. And I wake up in the middle of the night. Now, just to give you a visual, if you look, our bed was to the wall, and then if you look straight ahead, there was the hallway with rooms on either side, and the front of the apartment was directly in front. So I wake up in the middle of the night and I see this figure that's like pacing, going down the hallway, going into a room, coming out, going down the hallway, going into a room, coming out. And I'm looking and, even at 6 years old, I was still kind of questioning things, and I'm 6 or 7 and I'm like, what is that? Who is that? And I'm looking. And then I noticed that it was floating, and it was transparent white, and I'm like, all right, that's not one of my grandparents.
Yeah.
That's, I
don't remember them floating.
Right. So, and then what I did was I woke up my cousin because she was sleeping right next to me. I woke her up and she saw it as well. And she'll still to this day contest that she saw the exact same thing as me. So I'm always happy. At least I know I have somebody there that I knew I wasn't dreaming because she saw the same thing. So, I was 6 or 7. I was nervous. I was scared. So after like a couple minutes, I screamed, and the lights went on, and that was the last I saw of that entity. But fast forward to like 20 years later, I mean, now I've seen other things in between there, but fast forward to 20 something years later, and I was talking to my father about it, and my father's like, well, he goes, I was a teenager when we lived in that apartment. He goes, and where you slept, he goes, that was my room. And he's like, and I used to hear somebody whispering in my ear my name. He used to hear somebody whispering into his ear while he was in his bed trying to sleep.
That's amazing.
And he also said that one time he was sitting on the edge of his bed and he said, if there's a God, give me a sign. And his door slammed shut.
Wow.
Yeah. So apparently he has the same thing as me, where if he asks for a sign, something happens. But
you need to ask for the winning lotto numbers.
Right. I know. Exactly. But I mean, I've had things, like I said before with my podcast, not really directly asking for a sign, but I guess you kind of are when you're talking about this stuff a lot. Yep. And then, but one of the craziest, and it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it definitely was a big deal, was me and my friend were sitting in my house, and we were watching TV, and he was always kind of like very in tune with the paranormal as well. And we're sitting there, and I said to him, hey, have you experienced anything like paranormal, anything weird lately? He's like, no, you? I said, no. As soon as we said that, the remote control of the TV that was on the coffee table in front of us swiped off the table, as if somebody like just took it and went boom, like swiped it off the table like that, really fast and really hard. And I said, well, there's our sign. It's our paranormal. And we both looked at each other. We're like, yeah, we're just not going to address that. That's just get the remote, like let's not even talk about that now. That's kind of how I take it nowadays. Like, all right, I get it. I know, that's it. Yeah. Let's just move on and get, live or whatever together. Let's exist together, but yeah, it's been a little crazy, some of the things. I don't have a ton of stories and a ton of experiences, but enough for me to know that what I'm experiencing is the real deal, Yep.
But I've been saying for years, one of the things that fascinates me the most about paranormal, in the beginning, I used to think the paranormal just was strictly ghosts, but then I realized, no, it branches out to cryptids and UFOs and Mandela effect. It's just anything weird. But what really fascinates me the most is this stuff happens around the world, and it doesn't matter what religion or nationality, what skin color, whatever. Everybody, for how long now, has had some kind of paranormal experience. I mean, when you look at various cultures' stories, that have been passed on for generation after generation about weird things, it's just something's out there. I mean, how can you not know or believe that this stuff isn't real? I mean, something's going on. What is it?
Absolutely. And you know, I also think the same thing about yeah, I say it a lot too. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I really feel like we're getting closer and closer for the government to finally be like, yeah, you know, there's aliens, you know, and we know where they are. They're around, you know, like I know we're getting closer to it. They're softening us up for it, you know, when you think about it. Because the way I'm seeing it is that, and somebody I think at my job, I work in corrections. I'm a prison guard, but somebody at my job, one of my coworkers, had said this to me, and he made a lot of sense when he said it. He goes, think about it. He's like, many years ago, he goes, this was a joke. He's like, on the news, whenever they would talk about a UFO sighting, it was a joke.
Yep.
It was like, oh yeah, it was like a fluff
Swamp
piece.
gas.
It was like a fluff piece. They'd
Yeah.
be like, oh yeah, there was a mass UFO sighting. And they'd be laughing while they're talking about it. And it was a big joke. You know, people would be laughing. Hey, did you hear that, Sam? And you know, now it's a serious news report now when there's a UFO sighting. You know, they don't make jokes about it anymore.
Yep.
You know, and I feel like there's something to that, you know. I feel that they're definitely, especially the government. I mean, look, they've declassified a whole bunch of things. They have teams that are trying to figure out they're not aliens, but we have no idea what they are.
Yeah.
You know, but we're spending money to make all these teams to figure out what they are. Why you know, that's what I'm saying. And actually, love them or hate them, right? But like 2 years ago, there was a news article. I can't think of the gentleman's name. I probably wouldn't be able to pronounce it, but he was the Israeli space commander, right? So this is a man that was high, ranking, you know, very well respected guy, and he came out and said, "Listen, aliens exist. They're among us." And he even said, he goes, "President Trump knows about it, and he wanted to expose it." Mm-hmm. But I'm sure there was some people that could actually shut his mouth for a change, and they did that. You know, well, they probably told him, like, listen, if you come out and say this, especially during the pandemic, there's going to be mass chaos. You know, people are going to be doing all sorts of crazy stuff if they find out that aliens exist.
I mean, look at how the world handled the pandemic, you know, especially in the beginning when we didn't know what it was. And people were afraid. People were angry. People were, you know, so to find out about aliens at the same time, can you imagine what the world would have gone through?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You know, and then, of course, there probably would have been storming places like, oh, we want to see this. We want to see that. There'd probably be people breaking into Area 51 and all these other places.
Well, they tried.
You know?
Remember?
Yeah, I know they tried. Yeah,
or that was the plan. I don't think they actually made it. I think there was a handful of people that actually showed up for it.
Right, right. They probably got chased away by the government, you know. But no, I do believe that they're getting closer and closer to actually telling us, you know, or like, I mean, we already know, but you know, for them to actually come out and say, yeah, you guys were right, you know, that there's aliens, you know, but. You know, because look, your own Navy pilots said that they saw, you know, things. Mm-hmm. So your own government employees are saying this, and not just one, you know, many. So,
and it's interesting to find that governments now in North America are putting together or have put together a team to investigate UFOs, which they don't call them UFOs anymore.
UAPs.
UAPs?
Yeah.
Okay. So now they want to investigate past. I still have to call them UFOs. They're actually investigating all these UFO experiences that people are having. So that to me tells me something too.
Yeah. Why would you spend government money on something if you know? Mm-hmm. That's the thing, you know. I mean, I just feel like there's definitely I think we're very close. I think probably within a couple of years or something like that, we're going to find out like really everything. Even this new team that they put together of 17 people with all these scientists and all these, very, very smart people. They said that the program is going to be strictly like completely transparent. Like everything is going to be put out there, whatever they find.
I hope that's true.
So, yeah.
And they're not just throwing us a bone,
Right. I mean, but how many bones can you throw? That's what I'm saying. Like, eventually you're going to have to just come out and say it. But they're probably, that might be a strategy also. That might be a tactic. Like, all right, let's string them along so that when we finally do come out and say it, they're like, yeah, we do. And it's not going to be so much of a shock anymore because we've been stringing them along for how many years, Yeah,
give them enough information to keep them happy.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the funny thing too, that came out, like last year or 2 years ago, the UAP report that came out like 2 years ago was 40 pages, something like that. And they said that it was space debris. Like one of the causes could be space debris.
Well, there is a lot of space debris, but yeah.
And then, but what was funny was that they had like 5 different things that it could be, and then like the last one was like, or it could be unknown. All right, what? Yeah, that's what we're trying to say. It's unknown. Like obviously it's unknown. Like that's how they're trying to steer things. It's silly. It's like, how much are you going to be patronizing us with that kind of stuff? But
maybe they're trying to word it that way because they don't want to cause mass panic too. Because give us a little bit of information at a time instead of just giving us everything. And I would imagine that would cause mass hysteria globally. So I feel maybe just giving us a little bit at a time. Maybe they're just trying to do that to kind of keep the masses from storming the hill.
And here's the thing too. Like, I feel like I definitely believe in it, right? I feel like obviously they're not here to harm us because they're not gonna wait for us to know about them before they're not gonna be like, well, then they know about us now, let's blow up the earth. Like, they would have did that already. Mm-hmm. They're not gonna wait for us to know everything about them and then do something. You know what I mean? Like, if they've been here for how many thousands of years, they would have taken over this place thousands of years ago. Mm. They wouldn't wait for us to know who they are. That's how I see it, at least.
I've always questioned too, because they always say there are like the good aliens and the bad aliens, of course, and are the good ones protecting us from the really bad ones, because you get a lot of people having bad experiences with alien abductions and stuff like that, and some people have really good experiences, and it just makes me wonder if we are being protected from the real nasty ones out there.
Do you believe in the reptilians?
I don't know.
Me neither.
I do believe in extraterrestrials, but I don't know in what form. I really don't.
I mean, obviously, the most common is the Zeta Reticulus, the Greys. That's the biggest one. Now, with my podcast, I actually had 2 different interviews with 2 separate experiences between that. One of them was with Steve Neal, who was on season 2, episode 2 and 3, that I did an interview with him. He's a Hollywood monster maker, actually. He worked on the original Ghostbusters and Fright Night.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Really, really nice guy. I actually met him in virtual reality, of all places.
Oh, cool.
My virtual reality headset, and I actually met him in there. And we got to talking, and I'm like, you have to come on my podcast. And such a good guy. And he's actually very good friends with Whitley Strieber, who's a big name in the UFO community. He made the book Communion, and the movie Communion was based off of him, Whitley Strieber. But Steve has had abduction experiences since he was a kid, to the point where he still gets abducted. Like, it's like a normal occurrence for him now. And he had said that he's, of course it frightens him, but he's always had this one alien or visitor, he calls them, that is like almost like acts as if like a mother figure, like almost acts like she's comforting him, like saying everything is okay. He goes, obviously you can't tell if they're male or female. He goes, but she gives off like a female energy, and everything is okay. It's going to be over soon, this and that. And, and he's always had pretty calming experiences with it. Now, I had another interview with this kid named George. I mean, I like the kid. I don't know how, how credible or reputable he is, but his experience, which I thought was really interesting, was the complete opposite. His experience was that he feels, and he's been told by extraterrestrials, that what they do is they live inside your brain, basically. Like they take over people, but not in the sense that they possess people, but that they kind of like tap into your brain, and they telepathically, and they could experience what you're experiencing.
Oh yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
So like basically, if you're eating something good, they could taste it.
Yep.
Or if you have the feeling of love or whatever, any kind of feeling, they could feel that. They do want to take over, but they don't have the ability to. They're very aggressive, they're very nasty, and they lie a lot. That's what he says. They try to influence people to, commit suicide and stuff like that. But the human will is, way more powerful than what they could do, apparently. But that was his experience, which I thought was pretty crazy, that that there's these two very different experiences, So, and again, like I said, he's never, I don't know if he's credible or not, but my thing, and the way I have a virtual reality paranormal show that I do from time to time. It's called Paranormal Talk. And basically, because I don't get people calling into my show. So what I do is I do these talk show things on virtual reality, and people come and they tell their experiences. And I've actually been pretty good with that. Like sometimes I'll get 100 people there.
Oh, wow.
And they'll talk, about their experiences, and, real people, obviously, and they tell their experiences. And that's actually where I met Steve. But yeah, I mean, it's a crazy thing, and I lost my train of thought, but yeah.
Your train derailed. Happens to me all the time.
Yeah. It's late.
Yeah, the way that people, I don't think I've ever been abducted. I don't feel like I ever have. But from listening to other people's encounters, it sounds just like when us humans are researching a particular, I don't know, say bears, and they're tracking them, and they have devices to find out where they're actually migrating and everything. And every once in a while, they tranquilize them and make sure that they're healthy and all that. It sounds exactly like what these aliens are doing to us, trying to know more about they're researching us. But then, like humans, you're going to be having the good aliens and then the bad ones.
But how much? That's my thing too. Like, and I think I said it on one of my last shows. Like, how much are you going to be researching? Like, they've been. For example, I know that there's different species. I actually have a book on all these different species of alien races. But the Zeta Reticulus, for example, they've been known since the 50s, right? People have been talking about them since the 50s. How much more, how many more experiments can they do on people? If they've been abducting hundreds of thousands of people, like, what more do you need to know? You know what I mean? I
remember hearing you say that on one of your episodes, and maybe their technology isn't as advanced as we think, and they just have to keep researching for whatever reason because they're not understanding certain aspects of the human mind or body. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's my thing, but, again, if there's different species or whatever, then obviously they're going to do their own thing. But I don't know. It's a crazy thing. Have you ever seen any UFOs or anything?
I've seen lights twice. Once I was a teenager, back home in New Brunswick, and a bunch of us, me and my friends, were out at this beach. It's like a camping area as well, and we're all laying down on the picnic tables, and we're just looking at the stars. And there's this one star in particular, it zooms one way, zooms the other way, and it's just all over the place, moving quickly. And it's the size of a star, but stars don't move that way. And if it was like a meteor or something like that, it doesn't fall and all of a sudden go up and then go to the left, or, so my dad, I had to ask him, I said, do you know, because he's always been into aviation, and actually had a good friend that was a air traffic controller back home. And I asked him, like, do you know of any aircraft that could do something like that? He's like, no, kiddo, I don't know any aircraft that could do that. So we all believe that was a UFO. And then there was another time I was in British Columbia visiting my grandparents many years ago, and we're driving on the highway, and all of a sudden this big light comes out of nowhere on the left. And my grandfather thought that, there's only a field, there's no road there. And this light all of a sudden just appears, and it's starting to get bigger, and it's coming towards us, and it just kind of disappeared. And we're just like, did you just, like, what? The next day on the radio station, a whole bunch of people had called in saying about the light that they saw. So my grandfather and I just kind of looked at each other, and it's like, oh, and he used to be a pilot during World War II. And plus he worked for Air Canada, was a pilot for them too for many years. So apparently he's seen some pretty strange things in the air. But yeah, he says, yeah, that could have been, that was a very strange light. So he was convinced, and so was I, that was some kind of alien. Don't know what or why, but it was strange.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Actually, I had mentioned it to Brian and Al. I'm like, I live upstate now. I said, where, like, right near Pine Bush, because that's where this museum was, and Pine Bush was apparently like a UFO superhighway, years ago. And I'm like, but I've never seen anything. And Al's like, you will.
Yeah.
You will. Like, and I work at night. Like, sometimes I go to work at 2:00 in the morning. So I'm like always looking. I have to, because I take this long dark road, right? That's the highway. There's no street lights or anything. So I'm looking up in the air for UFOs. I'm looking in the bushes to see if I see Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to see something. I'm gonna take a picture of this freaking thing. Or I'm gonna take a picture. I promise I'm gonna get a picture of them. But I'm probably gonna freak out though, and probably forget to take a picture.
Do you have a dash cam?
I do not. No, I should probably get one though.
Yeah,
I should.
Just for not for accidents, it's just to see if you pick something up.
Yeah.
Do you have your phone ready or a camera ready when you're driving like that, just in case?
Well, yeah, I have my phone like kind of on my dashboard.
Yeah.
Sticking there, so I could always just grab it and
Yeah.
But who knows? Like, you don't know how fast you're gonna be. Like, that's actually what somebody had told me once when I also said, like, yeah, but how come all these pictures always come out blurry? Like, well, you got to think about it. If these things happen in the spur of the moment so fast, so you're not going to stand there and say, but if you were to stand there and say, all right, let me get a steady hand, or it's going to be over, So I'm like, all right, I understand that. That's true. That's true. Yeah, I get that.
I always explain that, like, my family and I, especially when the kids were wee, would go out for walks in the woods, with the dog and everything. And sometimes you'd see a couple of deer, and I would take a picture thinking, great, got great pictures. But then I look at my camera, my phone, and it's like, oh, son of a biscuit, it's blurry. And it's just a couple of deer, and then by the time you go to take another picture, they're gone. So
Right.
I don't know, maybe it's like, I'm calm and I want to take the picture.
Right.
So, I can only imagine. I've never encountered a cryptid up and close like that. So it can only be traumatizing and exciting at the same time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know how. There's got to be so much like preparation and like so much work just for like Al and Brian to like go out and do these investigations. Because you think about it, they're out there for hours.
Yeah.
how do you know exactly where you're going to walk, where you're going to go? It's got to be so much research involved in that, just to do that sort of thing. It's one thing to go to a haunted house, like, all right, well, I know this place is haunted,
Yep.
set up some cameras and maybe you'll catch something, or, EVPs. But if you're going out in the woods,
Yeah.
where these things, they don't want to be seen. They don't want you to know that they're there. So they're going to be, they don't want to come up close to you. So that they're going to try and stay away from you for the most part. So they're going to be very, very difficult to find,
Yep.
That's the one thing. Like, it's got to be so much, so much preparation to go into that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, Brian and Al, they're so lucky. They've encountered pretty much everything the paranormal community has to offer. I mean, they're just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, it's funny too, because people are like, I believe every word that those two guys say.
Yep.
I believe every word. They're not. I'm a prison guard. Mm-hmm. I know con artists. Those two guys are telling the truth. They're not con artists at all. Like they're being completely truthful with everything that they're saying. That's what I loved talking about them. Talking with them. Because I was like, wow. I mean, I believed every single word that they were saying. They had me on the edge of my seat for some of the stuff they were saying. Which was cool. And I hope it kept people that were listening, on the edge of their seat as well.
I've heard their stories, and when I heard them on your show, I was kept at the edge of my seat. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny too, because like I said to them, like, I never really delved into cryptids until I started the podcast. I didn't really know much about them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, everybody's heard of Bigfoot. The Loch Ness Monster is basically a hoax, but people are still seeing it. Stuff like that. But I mean, I had never heard of the Dog Man, and some of these other things, so it's pretty crazy. Some of these creatures and stuff that are coming out or that have been around that are being discovered now.
Yeah, the Dogman fascinates me because ever since I'm a little girl watching Scooby-Doo, I've always been fascinated with loup-garou, which is a form of werewolf, rougarou in a lot of parts of the States, like the Cajun parts. So when I found out about Dogman, I thought, that sounds kind of like a werewolf. So they're all different, but kind of like in the same classification, if I'm understanding it correctly. But Dogman fascinates me, and I hope to never want to see one because I would much rather see a Bigfoot than a Dogman, just from listening to other people's encounters. They are a lot nastier than Sasquatch.
Right. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I still think of Sasquatch as Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah.
It's probably, that comes to my mind. Not the movies, not the found footage movies of Bigfoot. No, Harry and the Hendersons come to mind when I think of Bigfoot. But no, actually, yeah.
Not the Patterson film, Patterson Gimlin. Right. That's Harry and the Hendersons.
Right, Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah.
No, but it's funny too, because after hearing about Dogman and all that, I grew up and I lived in Staten Island most of my life, which is a borough, the forgotten borough of New York City. And a lot of history, a lot of haunted locations there. And my friend, actually the friend that I was telling you about, that me and him always, he had a very strong paranormal sensitivity. He used to work, of all places, he was the night security guard at a cemetery. And a very popular cemetery at that. And he had said that, I don't think he saw it at that cemetery. I think he saw it at a different cemetery. But I remember his story. I don't talk to him anymore. We lost touch, or we haven't talked in a long time. But I remember him telling me like 20 years ago that he had seen I mean, for lack of a better term, a dog man. And he had described what people are describing as dog man now. That's what he described to me 20 something years ago. And I was like, you probably saw a dog, or you probably saw this, like it, you didn't hear about it then,
mm-hmm.
But I mean, now I'm like, holy crap, he probably really did see it, because Staten Island is a very paranormal place. It has a lot of paranormal energy in there, from, battles that were fought from the Revolutionary War to some of the Declaration of Independence being signed around there. And, a lot of history on Staten Island. But so that's why, like, every time I think of the dog man, I think about him telling me that story too, which was, now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, holy crap, he must have really seen that then.
You're not as crazy as I thought.
But yeah, I mean, is that the one, is as far as cryptids go, is that the one that like kind of scares you the most, is probably like the dog man, or like the thought, like the thought of him, right? Because
the just because of the aggression level. Because I've heard, we've all heard different encounters when it comes to Bigfoot. Some of them are very peaceful and they're trying to help people. And then there's the other spectrum where, it's like all hell broke loose with the Bigfoot. But so far with the Dogman, you haven't really heard any good encounters. And like I said, because I was so fascinated with loup-garou, werewolves growing up, that's my favorite cryptid. The Dogman is probably my favorite one as well. But do I ever want to see one? No, unless it's in a safe environment. But hearing people's encounters, there doesn't seem to be any good experiences so far. Yeah.
I'd like to see like a Bigfoot or something like that. Yeah, Dogman, I don't know, but I'd like to see like a Bigfoot or actually, I think, was it Al that said that he'd seen a Thunderbird, or was that Brian?
I think it was Al. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure it was Al.
That would be cool to see also, like this gigantic bird like that would be pretty crazy to see. I would just think that you'd be seeing like a dinosaur, like a pterodactyl or something, which would be pretty crazy. But I mean, look, there's only so much of the world that we've explored, so that's my thing too. Oh, that's actually what my point was before too, talking about the virtual reality shows that I do, is that one thing that I always tell people with their experiences is that who am I to say if you're, I'm never going to judge anybody for their paranormal experiences, because who am I to say what you saw, what you didn't see? I'm not going to come out and say, no, you didn't see that. You're crazy. Mm-hmm. I've had my own experiences, myself. Now, granted, I'm from New York City, so I don't care what people think.
All kinds of different creatures there. So, from what I understand, I've never been,
but like that's every time somebody's like, "Oh, you've seen things?" I said, "Yeah," and I always give them like a little warning. I'm like, "Listen, I'll tell you what I've seen, what I've experienced. Just know, I'm not trying to impress you, because I don't really care whether you believe me or not. Mm-hmm. I know what I saw, I know what I experienced, and that's all. That's it. And I'll tell you my experiences. And that's how I see with other people. Like I had this one kid on the Paranormal Talk Show. I believe he had I can't think of it. Not Asperger's, but like a form of Down syndrome type.
Okay.
And he was on the virtual reality, and he came into my paranormal show, and I've seen him at other paranormal shows as well. I've heard him talk, and he was telling about how he has bouts where he goes into like these paranormal dimensions, like he goes into like alternate realities of himself, like to where like he'll wake up and he'll be poor, and the next day he'll wake up and he'll be rich, and like all these weird occurrences. And at one point he was at the show and he was telling this, and there were people like making fun of him, and I'm like, I kicked them all off, because that's the good thing about being the host. I was able to just kick them out of the room. I'm like, no, you don't do that. I said, because that kid's experiences are as real to him as anything. Mm-hmm. So you don't get to tell him, that he's wrong or that he's seeing things.
You weren't there. Yeah.
Right. Because you don't know. Mm-hmm. How do you know that he's not seeing what he's really seeing? You don't know. Mm-hmm. Maybe he really is experiencing these, alternate dimensions, alternate realities. You have no idea. So, but that's kind of how I view things. It's just like, listen, if it was real to you, it's real to me.
Yep.
That's just how I've always done it. But have you ever been on like an actual paranormal investigation?
Yeah, I belong to a team here called Canadian Supernatural Research Society in the Ottawa Valley here in Ontario. We haven't done too much the past couple of years because of COVID, and I actually I'm taking a little hiatus from it. Just I have other things going on, so I told the girls that I won't be able to do much investigating right now. And plus, to be honest, I have a hard time bouncing back from those late nights. The older I get, I just can't do the all-nighters anymore. It takes me like a week, literally, to be able to get my energy back. Not like when I was younger, but yeah, we've done some investigations here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually how it was with me when I was playing in a cover band and a rock band. It's the same type of thing. I'd be out until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning playing at a bar, and then I'd have to go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. I can't do that anymore. It's just,
No.
I don't have the energy. I'm 42 years old. I don't have the energy at all to do any of that stuff. I mean, I'd love to still play though, but, yeah, I've never actually been on a real investigation. No, because I've just, I started this corrections job when I was 26 years old. So it's been pretty much corrections. That's pretty
Any
much all
experiences at where you work as a correctional officer?
So I've had a couple. When I worked at a very famous place, you might have heard of it, called Sing Sing.
Oh, yeah, that's just a little place, yeah.
Right. So I worked in Sing Sing for about
Wow.
a year. Yeah, and very, very intimidating place. When I tell you that's prison, like when you think of prison, that's Sing Sing. It has the 30-foot walls, concrete walls around it. When you walk into the front door and that gate slams behind you, even if you're a correction officer, it gives you the chills when you hear that gate slam behind you. Like it's the real deal. And I remember we were standing at roll call, and the sergeant had called me up and a few other people, and he's like, "Listen," he goes, "I need you guys to go check the visit room, the visit area." We're like, "Why?" Like, because there hasn't been visits in 2 days. It was closed for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "Oh, the cops just called me up and said that they got a 911 call, and it was coming from inside of the visit room. And they didn't say anything. It was like a static call."
Mm-hmm.
So he called me and a few other people, and of course, I had to make a joke because it was me, another sergeant, and like 2 other officers that had way more time than me. I was the newest guy. And we go over there and like, here, man, here, you take the key, you open up the door. Like, really? you of course you give the new guy
Yeah.
the job of opening the door first, really? But we went in there was nothing
Feel like
there.
a red shirt in Star Trek.
Right. Like I'm just, yeah, all right. But I opened the door, we looked around, there was nothing there, but it's just weird that a 911 call came from inside of that visit house and there was nobody there. That wasn't really, I mean, of course lines could get crossed and stuff like that, but that was with state corrections. Now I work at another very infamous place, Rikers Island.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened there was I was working in the adolescent building. Okay, when I first started, I was working in the adolescent building, and I did 6 years in state corrections, and then I went to city corrections. So I was working in this one area that was basically solitary confinement. Right, solitary confinement isn't what you think it is. It's not the whole, it's not. It's just a cell block where they stay locked in their cells for 23 hours. No different than any other cell block. They just stay in longer. So now that specific cell block used to be a regular cell block where the inmates would go in and out, go into the day room area, watch TV or whatever. It was a regular cell area a few years before that. But I was working in it at this point now. When it's obviously when it's solitary confinement, they're locked in. So I'm the only one on that tier. It was me on the tier, and it was my partner that was in the control station that was pretty much right in front of me. So because there's nobody else out and I'm the only one out there, I basically work as a butler. I have to get them their toilet paper, get them, toothbrush, toothpaste, whatever they need. I have to run, get it, bring it to their cells, give it to them. So we have this bucket that we keep all of the toilet paper and soap, toothbrush, toothpaste. We have it in this little white bucket. We have it on this ledge. Now it's securely on that ledge. The bucket isn't very big. It's on this wooden box, not near any windows or anything like that. And I'm working in this area. Nobody was around me. I turn to talk to my partner, and all of a sudden the bucket just flips off the wooden thing, and it flies on the floor and everything goes flying. Now, the reason why I said that was definitely paranormal was because I found out that, now this was in 2012. In 2009, a kid that was on that housing area had gotten beaten so badly at 16 years old. Wow. He got beat so badly by other inmates that he ended up in his cell bleeding internally, and he died in the cell.
Oh, damn.
He died in that cell in that housing area where that bucket flew off and flipped off and stuff like that. So again, me being me, I saw that happen, and the guy in my A station saw it also, and he was like, "Did you just see that?" I said, "Yeah, it's probably because I'm here." He's like, "What does that mean?" Yeah. I said I attract these things, man. I'm sorry. It just happens. Yeah. That's just but yeah, like that was one instance. Another incident, it was in the same building, was something very quickly, but everybody was locked into the housing area. I was in the control bubble at this station at this point, and I saw, with all the lights off, I saw as if somebody was running in the TV room, right? And everybody was locked in. There was nobody running there, but it sure as hell looked like there was somebody in there running, So that was a little, it could have been out of the corner of my eye, sure, but again, I've experienced these things a lot, so I kind of know when to second guess myself, I mean, that's really it. I've been, not that I've been waiting for something to happen, because I don't, but there's been a lot of unfortunate deaths in the building that I'm working in now, as far as suicides and drug overdoses and stuff like that. So trust me when I tell you, I know every house that this stuff happens in, and I'm like sitting there saying, all right, something's going to happen. I know something's going to go down. I just got to keep my cool because I'm at work. Yeah. But yeah, it's if anything is going to happen, it's going to happen in a jail, I'm sure, because of all the negativity and all the sorrow and all the sadness,
all the emotion. Yeah.
Right. I did do a tour of Easton State once. Mm-hmm. Easton State Penitentiary in Pennsylvania. But unfortunately, it was during Halloween time. So it was dressed up for Halloween, and all the people were hiding and scaring you and stuff like that. But I would love to go there for a real paranormal tour, when it's not Halloween time, when I could really just go in there, really look around and take pictures and stuff like that. But I've never actually been in a real paranormal investigation. I'd love to go, though. I'd love to do it. Maybe when I retire in a few years, 6 years.
Or maybe when you're on vacation sometime, you can find a team in your area, and maybe you could join them sometime. Kind of like a ride-along.
Yeah, no, that would be cool. That'd be cool, because I would definitely enjoy that.
I'm sure if you can't find any, Al and Brian probably know people. They might be able to help you find someone if you're interested.
Yeah, no, I would definitely love to do that. My wife is such a skeptic, though. Like, she'd be making fun of me the whole time. She'd be like, "You're going where? you're gonna leave to go on a ghost hunt? You know, she doesn't believe in any of it, which is crazy because I'm like the total opposite, you know. But you know, it's I guess it is what it is. But
My husband is very religious. I'm more spiritual, so he doesn't like it when I go on investigations. But I will ask before I leave for an investigation. It's like, yeah, just can you give me a little protection prayer there, you know, and makes him feel better, makes me feel better. But we also do little prayers right before an investigation. We sage, we have crystals on us, and at the end of the investigation, we always say, "You're not allowed to follow any of us home. That's not happening." So, and we do sage afterwards a lot of times too. Not always, but most of the time, we'll just to make sure that we're cleansed and that nothing negative would attach themselves to us.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, the only time I've really ever said that was after my Ouija board experience that I had, because it happened. It was in my car, and I heard whispering after I dropped the person off. We did the Ouija board in my car, and I dropped the person off, and I was driving home, and I heard whispering in my ears if somebody's sitting in the back seat, like leaning over, whispering in my ear. So I went home, and before I went in my door, I said, "Listen, if there's something with me, I don't want you here. Go back to where you were. I don't want you in my house." You know, I don't know if it works, but it seemed to have worked for me. You know,
Even if
but
they're harmless, I don't want anything following me. I don't want anyone following me home. Even, you know, I'll go to other people's homes. We'll go to businesses to do investigations. I don't want to have to investigate my own house. You know, and I won't. I've had some people say, "Oh, maybe you have a voice recorder on during the day or when you're sleeping," and I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that. If I'm not having any activity, I'm not looking for it either." Because as soon as I have a little bit of activity, and I actually do an investigation, I feel it's going to ramp it up even more. You know, I sage my house on a regular basis. Sure, we've had some things happen in the house before and in the last house that we lived in Alberta as well. But there were nothing, it wasn't anything major. All I had to do with the last house in Alberta is just, you know, like stop it and you know, like they would turn the thermostat up to really hot. Like, it's like, you're not paying for the hydro. Stop it. Like, get a job, give me some rent and maybe, but no, but here I sage on a regular basis too, because you do bring negative energies home just at the grocery store, because you never know what a person is going through that shopping in the same location you are, you know. And I firmly believe that other people might have attachments or just negative energy because of their emotions, and it can kind of bounce onto other people, and you can bring that home.
Yeah, no, I definitely I agree with that as well. I mean, I think that's why Chris has had such, you know, because he knows how to work with the Ouija board. He knows, you know, how to handle it. He knows how to close it out. He knows how to do all that stuff. He treats it with respect. But
and that's the thing, respect. Yeah.
Right. And it's funny though, because I don't know. I mean, you've talked to him before. He had said that, like, in most of the things, you know, they'll come across and say, "Oh, I'm a demon. I'm this and that, and I'm this and that." And most of the time, it's just an entity playing a prank, you know, or saying like, "Oh no, you know, my name is so and so. I'm just a, you know, I used to live here," or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, not really like a, you know, or, but I mean, that's also what demons do too, though. You know, they'll say, "Oh, I'm Satan." But they're not Satan. They're, you know, they're a demon, but they're not, you know. So it's, you know, it's crazy how they're able to do that even in the afterlife, you know, but or you know, in the spiritual realm.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the whole thing is just so interesting. I mean, I'd love to learn more about, like, you know, the demonology thing, but again, at the same time, I don't want to get too far into it because I don't know. I'm 42. I'm not trying to to start something new like that now and then have to, like, find my way out of a really, really bad situation, you know. contact like Father Marin or something, come to my house to help me out. I'm not looking forward to that. So,
No. The nice
I
the nice thing about being in a paranormal investigator and podcaster is you get to meet so many people in the para community, and I've had the pleasure of meeting an archbishop and a sister, and if anything ever goes south during investigations, something that we can't handle, we also, I don't know if you know who Michelle de Roche is. She's very well known in Canada and in the States. She's done she handles the more intense cases that I don't even want to think about. So it's nice to know that if we are doing an investigation and it is beyond us, that we do have the big guns that we could call in and say, yeah, we kind of need some help with this. But so far, knock on wood, we haven't had to do that.
That's like, we're interested in this stuff, but
yeah,
not to that extent.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we actually covered a lot. Actually,
I think so. Yeah, cryptids, ghosts, demons, aliens.
yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the whole gamut of things, right?
Yeah.
One thing I actually would love to have on my show. I don't know if you've done way more shows than I ever have, but have you ever had anybody that's like practice with the kinesises, the telekinesis or pyrokinesis or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of, no. No, I haven't. That would be interesting to speak to an individual like that, though.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, I've been looking on like Facebook groups and stuff like that, and there are Facebook groups about it, but it's never anybody like, oh yeah, I lit my chair on fire today or something like that. Like it's never anything like that. So,
Yeah.
but I'm looking for somebody as far as that, somebody with like that knows some stuff about time travel or alternate dimensions, something a little bit different than the normal stuff that I talk about. But I say it all the time, and I'm sure you agree with me. Like the paranormal community, I cannot pick a favorite guest that I've had on.
No,
I love everybody.
Yeah.
And there's such good people. Every single person, minus one guy that I've never put on, but everybody else, I mean, such good people, I mean, so accepting, very down to earth, when somebody that's a skeptic or somebody that's not really into it, they're like, oh, well, you probably meet a lot of crazy. Like, no, I mean, everybody that I've talked to, even at the Paracon, just normal people, like everybody's been real nice, very accepting, very friendly. I can't say anything bad about anybody that I've come across, really.
I have to say that the majority of guests that I've had on my show, I've developed a friendship with them, that I speak with them, not necessarily every day, but quite often, it's just amazing. Years ago, when the paranormal started becoming a little bit more acceptable after all the TV shows started, there was a lot of drama out there, a lot of hate, and people started getting fed up with that. And I feel like people just started banding together and not putting up with the bullies, if you will. And now you have, para-unity is thrown around a lot, but there is para-unity now. I mean, more and more people, podcasters, investigators, anybody in the para community, we're raising each other up. We want to listen to each other's stories. Tell me about what, like, we'll be talking to another team, and it's like, tell us what you've experienced. Let's try and get all this data together and see if we can get a correlation. It just seems to be so many more people now are like, yeah, I'm not dealing with the drama anymore. And right. I've been so fortunate. Like, I have a lot of great people in the community that are just such great friends and knowledgeable, and it's been good.
And there's no competition either.
No.
That's what I love about it too. There's absolutely no competition.
Yep.
Which I think is so great. I mean, even in the podcast community as well, there's no competition, which I guess because the market is so saturated, if I'm going to dislike your show, I'm going to dislike the 30,000 other paranormal podcasts that are out there too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's silly to have some kind of competition as far as that goes, but
Yeah.
I think as far as the paranormal community, we're all kind of in it for the same thing. We want to find answers. We want to find, well, we know that it exists, but we want to find like legitimate proof that people are just going to be like, yeah, I can't deny that. That's, it's, the technology is a curse. It's a good thing, and it's a curse at the same time, because now I feel like you could catch something really, really good on camera, and then just be like, it's fake. Oh, good editing job.
Yeah.
Oh, good photoshopping. I didn't Photoshop it. Yeah, you did. No, I didn't. But they'll never believe you because Photoshop is out there and it's amazing, and you can create ghosts and all sorts of craziness with Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, especially nowadays, like you could edit, do movies, do visual, like make movies just straight on your computer with special effects and all that.
Even your phone, there's some pretty good apps. Like if you have an iPhone, there's called iMovie, I think it's called. You can do amazing stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, nobody's ever going to believe the footage that's out there. Mm-hmm. And that's actually where I was going when I said that to Alan and Brian as well. I'm like, I feel like it's pointless to fake anything anymore because it's so saturated. Like all these TV shows, all this stuff, you're not even going to get 5 minutes of fame, let alone 15 minutes of fame, if you have a picture of a ghost, because nobody's going to believe it.
Yeah, they just pick apart at it.
So it's not like, what's the point of even trying to fake something anymore? Because you're not going to get anything out of it, But that's just my thoughts with it, Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock. Most of our time was trying to get on the stupid. On this.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could salvage something. It's going to be a lot of editing work.
Oh,
though.
yeah. Well, thankfully, this will be for my show. This will be out in January, so I have all kinds of time to edit.
I might have to take your edit. I don't have any more. I mean, well, tomorrow's interview that I'm having is with my friend that does the horror movie stuff.
Oh, okay.
Dave. Yeah, I'm like, you know what? I said, I'm on vacation. You have to come on the show.
Yeah.
I have to do an interview with you because it's going to be really funny. Because me and him have been friends since we were like 10 years old.
Oh, so it's going to be an amazing one. Yeah.
And we've then I don't know how he's going to be now, but I know back like when we were 20, 17, 18, he never really believed in the paranormal. It did interest him, and he always went to like all like the spooky places, but he never really believed in the paranormal. So I don't know if it's changed since then, but I have some things planned. I have some things planned for him.
I look forward to it.
some funny stuff too, but that I'm gonna throw in there. But yeah, he was actually he's the announcer of my show. He's the one that's that does the announcing, and me and him were in a band together for a lot of years.
Nice.
So yeah, he was a singer of my my rock band that I had.
I am not musically inclined. I love music, but I no.
I've been playing guitar for like 25 years, but I'm probably still at like a 3-year level because I never practice.
Okay. Yeah.
But maybe one day. But I have and I have all the equipment. Oh, that's actually whether this makes the interview or not, though. How's the voiceover stuff going?
Oh, it's going well. That was definitely. I've been working about a year on this first book. It's called Integrity by J.B. Coates. She's also a paranormal investigator, actually. Because this is all new and it was a learning curve, and my friend Brian Anderson has been mentoring me, and he sent me, we discussed before, he's been sending me video tutorials, and we had a lot of Skype calls where I would share the screen. I'm like, I don't know how I'm editing, I don't know what I'm doing. It would take me at least a week to do a chapter, at least a week, just to record it. And then I would have to edit it. process it and everything. Now I can do it in a day. So
Right.
I'm getting better. It's going a lot faster. I started chapter 19 the other day, and there's 22 chapters. So I just have to do those few chapters and the outro. Not the outro, that's for shows. The closing credits. So, you've been listening to Integrity, written by, narrated by, that sort of thing. And then it's going to be done, because what I do is with each chapter, after I've done the editing, I send it to JB for her to listen to, for her to get approval. And if she says, yeah, it's good to go, you can process it, I'll do it, then it's done. I put it in the complete file. So it's not like I have to record 22 episodes, then I have to edit everything. I do it first. And sometimes she'll say, yeah, you said he instead of she, or stuff like that. I want her to listen to it because I listen to it and I do miss things. But yeah, it's come along, and I'm hoping to have it done soon. It's a very slow time of year right now at work at the hotel, because Christmas is approaching and we're not as busy. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to really hammer away at it and finish it soon. I'm hoping by January. But I've had tech issues. I had COVID twice this year, and that took a long time to get over. So I had to stop with the recording, obviously. And just recently I had a cold, sore throat, stuffiness, and I can't really do the narrating that, because as a listener, you purchase an audiobook, you don't want to hear like, okay, the voice sounds fine, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're nasally, they definitely had a cold, and the next chapter is fine again. I gotta wait until I'm better, but it's
I had actually, I want to really get started in the audiobook type thing. Again, like my hours really, really suck. So I'm actually trying to put in some, since I have until the 30th to go back. I'm trying to like do a few auditions now so I could throw some in there. Hopefully I could get an answer, hopefully, and I could have something started by then, by the time I get back, so I could work on it. But yeah, it's always interested me, that and the whole voiceover thing. As far as voiceover in general, I mean, I would love to do like commercial voiceover stuff, like commercials, or like loudspeaker type. I'm not doing voices. I don't know how to do voices. I don't know. Like, that's just not. I know if you go on TikTok, everybody that's doing voiceover is doing like all these, video game voices. Like, I don't know how to do that stuff. I don't do it. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So mainly like the commercial voiceover stuff. I'd love to do the audiobook type stuff. But yeah. I know you did that one story for me, which was really cool.
Yeah, I had fun doing it.
Yeah, I actually, you know what, too? I actually just listened to an audiobook off of Audible. It was the Warrens, The Demonologist. If you ever heard of that book, The Demonologist.
I think I have.
When I tell you, if you have Audible, get The Demonologist.
Oh, really?
That guy that narrated, that was I don't listen to audiobooks, right? So I can't say what's good or bad, but that guy was amazing. The one that did that, because he did Lorraine's voice, Ed's voice, all the inflections of everybody's voices. Mm-hmm. When he was talking about the Perron family from the Conjuring house, he did like the mother's voice. Obviously not the real voice, but the inflection of the of a female or something like that. He was amazing. I mean, he only maybe once or twice I heard him slip and like use Ed's voice for his own voice, or use Ed's voice for Lorraine. So, maybe one time I heard him slip. But that's a 10-hour book, so that's not too bad, Yeah. But he did an awesome job, and the book was amazing too. So if you want a good like listen,
I have to check that out.
Demonologist was amazing. Some of the cases, some of the stories I've never heard before, and it was incredible. I mean, the jury for me is still out with Ed and Lorraine. I'm not sure. I mean, I want to believe them. I want to believe that they're the real deal.
Yep.
Because so many people did believe that they were the real deal. So to me, it's. You have to kind of go with the masses with that. If the masses say, like, if all these people are saying, these people are the real deal, go with that more than, the other people that say, nah, they're full of crap, but as far as the Amityville thing, I don't know. Have you ever really looked into the Amityville horror case? Like,
No, I
really
haven't really looked into it. I watched the movie, obviously, as a
Yeah.
teenager, but no, I haven't really looked into it.
So I'm sure you've seen the picture of little John Michael. I think his name is John Michael. It's a very famous picture from the Amityville investigation, where it's like you see like a little boy with like glowing eyes.
Okay.
He's near the steps, like near the staircase, and that was taken by Ed and Lorraine Warren's team when they were there investigating it. Now, the one thing that I'm a little bit, like I said, I want to believe them 100%, but if you look at that picture, the little boy is wearing a checkered shirt, like a lumberjack type shirt. Now, which, I mean, obviously in the 70s and 80s they were very popular, so I mean anybody could have been wearing them. But one of the people that was on the Warrens team that was there that night had similar hair to the kid that was in the picture, and was wearing a lumberjack shirt the same day that picture was taken. So I'm like, I don't know, like it could it be a coincidence? Could it be, I don't know. But like that was a little bit, I'm not sure how to feel about it, but I want to believe them. I mean, that especially after listening to the demonologist book, some of the stuff that they were saying, like Ed was a very, very intelligent guy. He knew his stuff. Definitely, without a doubt. As far as demonology, stuff that he was saying in that book, I mean, I learned a lot from that book, to be honest with you. Because they would tell their experiences, but he would also go into, well, demons do this and demons do that, and this is how they act, and this is what happens, and this is, and it was very extremely informative. So I would definitely check that out. For sure, if you have some time, because it was like was it 10 hours? I think it was 10 hours long, but it was a really, really good book. Really, I was
check that out.
Yeah, you'll definitely enjoy it, because like I said, if not for anything, for the guy that was narrating it, he was amazing. He was awesome.
That's something I struggle with the book that I'm doing now, because there's characters in there, and JB says I'm doing a good job with the voices. I don't think I am, but she's the author. She's happy. I'm happy. But it is my first book, so I hope that it will be well received by any listener.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of like, when I'm going on ACX now, I'm looking for all nonfiction stuff, because I want to just like try like one of those dry books about nonfiction stuff, like strategy type stuff or whatever it may be, something like that, just so I don't have to do any voices, at least not right away.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I've never had any kind of acting or anything like that.
Me neither.
Everybody's very, very particular in the voiceover community. Like, no, you have to get training. You have to have acting lessons. You have to have this. I don't have time for all that, Maybe one day, but not right now.
Yeah.
So, maybe down the line, I'd love to do that, like do real life voiceover work. But that's one thing that's extremely competitive that I noticed. Like, I'm on this one voiceover Facebook group, and when you ask them certain questions, I'm a very thick-skinned person, right? You have to be when you're a prison guard and B in the paranormal community, But I'm very, very thick-skinned and a New Yorker too. But I almost got chased out of that Facebook group.
Really?
Because I had asked the question, and they all I must have gotten like 90 responses from people.
Wow.
Like, pissed off at me, like really mad at me. And my question was, I'd like to get started in voiceover. Are there any like starting jobs that I could do for less money, where like I'm not expected, like if I'm just starting out, I'm not going to ask for $200 an hour. I'm just starting out. You know, like you should have heard, no, there's a specific price that we all go by. And if you don't go by that, then you're doing us a disservice. And
I've heard that too.
Oh my God. Like it was rough. Like I said, like I was like, wow. All I did was ask a question, you know, like you don't have to jump down my throat, you know, about it.
I'll tell you a website that you can go to after we're done recording here that you could audition for smaller jobs.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. You know, that's kind of what I want to do, at least in the beginning, you know, because that almost really discouraged me from the whole thing, because I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, look, I said, I understand what you guys are saying. I said, but I'm coming from a musician's point of view. If I was in a new cover band or a new band, I'm going to go to a place and either play for beers or play for $50 for the night.
Yeah.
Because I'm a new band. And then if I'm still doing it 2-3 years later, then I'll be asking for $500 a night or $1,000 a night.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when you're new, you don't know as much. You got
to work your way up to it.
You have to work your way up, but not in the voiceover community. No, don't say that to them. You know, because they're very, very offensive. They get very offended. I've noticed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm. So you said you noticed that as well too, right?
Yeah.
Because that was Like my feelings were hurt. Like I was like, oh my God. Like, no, I'm like, I'm gonna have to get. I feel so bad. Like I'm gonna have to go off this group. Like they're all mad at me now. They're never gonna help me out now. You know, but they still, some of them still gave me snide remarks and stuff. And like I'd be like, listen, I'm like, I'm not trying to compete with anybody. You know, I'm trying to live amongst everybody. I'm not trying to compete. Like. You know, but then somebody had told me that, like, listen, they're like, most of the people that you're going to come across that say that sort of thing think that they're bigger than they really are. You know, like they'll be telling you that they did this, they did that, they did this when they haven't done anything. So just, you know, just take it with a grain of salt.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I guess all of us that have all this equipment kind of want to go that route too, because we already have a podcast, we already have this editing software, all this stuff, so it should be an easy transition for the most part, you know.
It wasn't for me, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, I'm still trying to learn all these plugins. Like that's my thing too. Like I feel like since I'm not getting a lot of listeners, I keep going through it. Like, what is it? Is it my content? I'm like, I'm putting out good content, I think. And then
I think you have a great show.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like, I'm like, well, you know, I changed it around. I have music underneath segments now, and I have intros. I have different people coming on, and I'm like, I don't understand why I'm getting such low listenership, you know? So now, then I think to myself, well, maybe it's my sound. Does my sound good? So now I go out and I buy like $200 worth of plugins to try and make things sound better, and it ends up sounding worse. You know, I don't know. I know people say it's a marathon, not a sprint, but I've been doing it for 2 years, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I should just change topics, you know, and do something totally different. But the only three things I know about is paranormal, music, and corrections. And I'm not going to talk about corrections because I do this stuff to get away from that. So I have stories that'll last years with corrections, but I don't want to talk about that stuff, you know. And music is probably even more saturated than the paranormal podcasts. So
I wish there was a magical formula.
Right. I know. Yeah. And then you have people that there's like 3 people and they just talk about what they had for breakfast, and they're getting thousands and thousands of listeners. Like, I'm putting in so much work doing all of this, you know, all of this research and getting my scripts together, and I'm very critical of myself, so
I am too. Yeah.
I'll re-record something, even if it's just like one line and I stutter in it. I'm like, no, I don't like that. I'm going to go over and do it over again.
Yep.
And I just constantly, no, I don't like the way I said that word. I said that word wrong. And I have to keep redoing it. And I'm like, I'm doing all this work for 30 people, but at the same time, I understand there's still people and they're still listening to my show. And actually, one of my friends from one of my old bands had put it into perspective for me when he's like, listen, he goes, when we were playing in bars, he goes, and we were playing in front of 5 people. He goes, how did you play? He said, you still played the same way as if we were playing in front of 500 people, right? I said, yeah. He goes, that's the same way you got to think about it. He goes, just go in with that attitude,
Yep.
He goes, you were a rock star when you were playing in front of 5 people. So do the same thing as a podcast, And then somebody else had mentioned it, another podcaster, because I don't know, are you on Clubhouse?
Clubhouse?
Yeah, it's an app
no.
that it's an audio app where it's like you go into like meetings and like seminar type things, and there's a lot on podcasting as well. I'll send you an invite to your
please.
Yeah, because it's a free app, and it's actually really good. You could listen in, or you could conversate with people about podcasting, about acting, about anything, kind of. And it's pretty cool. It was really popular during the pandemic, and it kind of went down a little bit since, but it still has a pretty decent community. But somebody on there had said to me, they're like, listen, they're like, take it like this. They're like, if you were doing a seminar and talking about the paranormal on a stage, and there was 50 people there, he goes, that'd be pretty good, right? I said, yeah. He goes, that's how you got to think about it. He goes, there's 50 people listening to your show. He goes, think about it if they were in the same room and you were giving a seminar on a stage. He goes, that's 50 people. I said, all right, I could go with that. I just wanted to improve. That's my thing. I wanted to keep getting better and better,
Same. Yeah. So, I'd love to have tens of thousands of listeners. I don't. But the listeners are growing slowly. Slow and steady, so I'm happy. I like what I'm doing, so I'm going to keep doing it until I don't like doing it.
Right. My first season was completely different than what I do now, though. My first season, I had a partner. We called it the Ghost Hacks Podcast because we were both correction officers.
Okay.
And a hack, HACK, is a derogatory term towards a correction officer. Basically meaning a horse's ass carrying keys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we called it the Ghost Hacks Podcast, and we ended up going our separate ways because he was a skeptic, which was fine, but he would badmouth everything that I would be doing. Like I'd be doing all this research, like pretty much I'd be putting together all the shows. Even some of the guests that he brought to the show, I had to make their questions, and they were like personal friends of his, and I'm making the questions for the interview.
Yep.
So I was doing pretty much everything, and then I put this one whole show together about the Philadelphia experiment and how it connected with time travel and all this other stuff. And I put this whole show together, and he pretty much badmouthed every single segment I did on that show.
Oh, that's not right.
Like on the show. And then one day we were talking about things, and he's like, yeah, he goes, I really want to have like regular guests on, like regular people, not like paranormal people. He goes, because all the paranormal people that we've interviewed, I don't know. Like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, it's a paranormal show.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna. It's one thing to be a skeptic and to have a skeptic on the show. That's fine, but skeptics don't listen to paranormal podcasts. Believers listen to paranormal podcasts. The skeptic isn't going to listen to the show,
Yeah.
because they don't believe it. So why are they going to waste their time listening to a show that they don't believe in anything? they'd rather listen to a show that they believe in or that they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't believe in the paranormal, why would they listen to a paranormal show? So you're catering towards people that, believe in the stuff.
Yep. And want to know more about the topic. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a different, we had a lot of fun though. It's always that 2-person dynamic is always good. You know what I mean? Like, because you can bounce off each other and there's always some kind of funny conversations that happen, but
you have to have the right person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my friend Dave would be the perfect person to have, but we both have crazy schedules, so we wouldn't be able to do it together, unfortunately. But hopefully tomorrow's thing goes over probably pretty funny, probably pretty well. So looking forward to that. But
well, I'm going to have to call it here because it's 11:30 and I have my studio in my bedroom and my husband wants to go to bed. I just looked at the time. I'm like, oh no. So
it's late.
So thank you so much, Joe, for doing this collaboration with me. I had a great time. And for my listeners, can you tell them where they can find you and your show?
So they can find the Warped Reality Podcast on all the major podcasting platforms. You can find me, Ghost Joe, you can go to TikTok or Instagram. There's a Facebook group for the Warped Reality Podcast. You could go on there as well and find me there. Or you could, email me at ghostjoeny@gmail.com. Or you could call my the Warped Reality Podcast hotline at 845-600-0744 and let me know your paranormal experience, or you could just tell me you hate the show, whatever you want to do. That's all good.
Just call me.
All right, that's all right. How about you? How can people get in touch with the Paranormal Hearts podcast?
Podbean and YouTube are my 2 major platforms, but they're pretty much everywhere. I'm also on KPNL Network on Digital Network on Thursday nights, but pretty much anywhere like iHeart, Spotify. I'm pretty much wherever you can find podcasts. And if anybody wants to talk about paranormal, you can reach me at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. But I'm also on TikTok, Twitter, I'm on Instagram. But for my show notes, I usually add all the links. So I'll be adding yours as well there. So everyone will be able to find you a lot easier.
Same. All right, very good. All right. Thanks a lot, Kat.
Thank you so much.
Well, we've made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, take care of each other. And if you'd like to be on the show or have questions and comments, just drop me an email, paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Paranormal Heart would like to extend a special thank you to PurplePlanet.com for supplying the music for the show. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart are those of the host and participants.